Hello, and thank you for attending this Capital Magnet Fund Performance Report Completion Training. This module will cover an overview of changes and enhancements to the CMF Performance Report effective with the September 2021 deployment of changes. We will start off our training from the CDFI Fund's website, cdfifund.gov. If you hover over the Programs tab and then select Capital Magnet Fund, we will navigate to the CMF program page. If you scroll down and select Step 5 for Compliance and Reporting, once the Step 5 page opens, you will find a link to the most recent version of the Compliance Reporting Manual. Within that manual, under section 1.2 and 1.3, you will find a summary of changes. Here in the table, you will see a list of those changes, and then to the right, you will see if to what record types those changes are applicable. The key indicating that R stands for rental housing, H for home ownership, EDA for economic development activity, and DAE for direct administrative expenses. So in this training, we will take some time to review some of these changes and demonstrate how they operate in AMIS, or the Awards Management Information System. So we'll start off here with the first grouping of changes, enhancements and reconfigurations. So applicable to all record types, the Create New Annual Report button, there were some changes to those and how they operate when annual reports are created for projects. For rental project types, rental project level income targeting test, there were some reconfigurations to where you will find that test for rental projects. And for rental homeownership and EDA, there have been some enhancements to geocoding functionality. So let's start off by reviewing those three enhancements and reconfigurations. We go to AMIS. We will pull up a performance report to review a few of those changes. The first one being the reconfiguration of the Create Annual Report button. So for our test account here, we have three existing project records. So we will just select one of these to demonstrate how the Create Annual Report buttons now work. We do not have an annual report for this current reporting period, so if we navigate to the CMF Project Annual Reports link, we can see here that there is an existing annual report for the last reporting period, so we need to create one for 2021. You will notice two options here: Create New Annual Report and Create Blank Annual Report. So if you click Create New Annual Report, this will clone the previous year's annual report if one exists. Generally, you will want to use this button, but for any reason, if you run into a validation issue or an error, you can always use the Create Blank Annual Report. But as most of the details on this project we want to carry forward from year to year, we will go ahead and use Create New Annual Report to clone the 2020 report for 2021. After clicking the Create New Annual Report, we will select the stage of this project, either investment or affordability. So if the 10-year affordability period has started, we'll select affordability. If it has not, we'll select investment. This particular unit is placed into service. 10-year affordability period started in the last reporting period. So we'll select affordability and hit Create. Next, we will see here on the annual report edit page that all of the details we reported last year have now been carried forward or copied into our 2021 annual report. Here we will indicate the project status as of the fiscal year end. So this unit had been placed into service, but we will indicate that during this reporting period, it actually the affordability period terminated. So we will update that to incomplete terminated. The qualifying family moved out. The property was sold to another family. So we will go ahead and report a termination date here. All the other details that we had previously reported, we will go ahead and leave those in the annual report for this year. So last year, a $15,000 disbursement was reported. We will go ahead and leave that information in here. We reported $160,000 of eligible project cost. Those details will remain as well. If you need to report any earnings or program income, those can be reported here in the program income fields, but otherwise we will just update the status to incomplete terminated. We filled in the termination date, and we will leave all other information previously reported as is and save the report. One of the other changes is related to the rental project income targeting test. So if we navigate to a rental project, we can review the changes there. There were some erroneous noncompliances being generated for some CMF recipients related to the CMF rental project income targeting test, which requires that at least 20% of the units in each rental affordable housing project be restricted to low-income tenants. The test is a little bit different for 2016 recipients and others, but this test was updated and moved to be based on the units complete rather than those occupied, as occupancy numbers shift and change throughout the year. So you will now notice here on the rental project record and the rental number of units complete, you will see that the rental project income targeting test has been shifted up to this section. For all record types, rental, homeownership, and EDA, there have been some enhancements to the geocoding functionality. And what geocoding means is that once you enter an address for a particular project, geocoding is when the system looks up that address, provides a census tract, XY coordinates, and then assigns some information to it, such as if the project is in the approved service area, if it's in a rural area or area of economic distress, as for some other geographic components that could be associated with the project. You'll notice here this particular unit has been geocoded. There is a new status field, which will indicate the status of the project and if there are any errors. So this project, as mentioned, has already been geocoded, so let's make an edit to it. Let's say our project was actually at 927 Riverside Drive. Right, now that we have made an edit, we can see that the census tract, FIPS code, and other geographic information has been cleared out. We'll see a new message here that by editing that address, that this information will be unavailable until the project is geocoded once again, typically within 24 hours. And we can see here the new geocoding status field that this geocode is scheduled. So if there are any errors, such as perhaps an incorrect zip code or city or state are entered, if there is an error with geocoding record, you would find it here in the geocoding status. After entering an address, it is recommended you check back to this field, generally in about 24 hours, to ensure that a given project location is geocoded correctly. Here I am on a rental project location page, but this functionality will work the same for homeownership projects and economic development activities as well. Returning to the table of changes, the next significant set of changes results in field combinations and removals. The combinations we will come back to more momentarily, but I'd like to just point out that a few fields have been removed. On the annual report, there was previously a stage of investment field that has been removed, so you will no longer find that. That's a field that was on rental. homeownership and EDA project records. Additionally, the disbursement status field has been removed on the annual report, once again for rental, homeownership, and EDA project records. We'll come back to this change along with some of the combinations here momentarily. Before discussing those changes, I'd like to point out a few new fields you will find in the performance report. There is a new field for origination fees, for enterprise level leverage. Both of those new fields applying to rental, homeownership, and EDA. For rental projects, there's a new field for out-of-service units. For homeownership, there are new fields on race and ethnicity. And for rental, homeownership, and EDA, there's a new project impact narrative field. So let's go back to Amos and highlight where you will find some of those new fields and how to fill those out. So we will navigate back to the annual report for this project. And here under the use of CMF award section, you will notice there is, here's the new origination fee field. So we are interested, the CDFI fund wants to collect information on the origination fee associated with the CMF financing. This is not tied to any given performance test or measure. It's just a data point that the CDFI fund is collecting for informational purposes. If the type of disbursement is listed as grant or equity, that field will not be required. However, if the disbursement type is listed as debt or multiple, then the origination fee field will be required. So even if the disbursement type is debt and there's no origination fee, you can simply enter a 0 to avoid any errors with saving this report. You can see here, we indicated the type of disbursement was debt, and we did receive that error because no origination fee nor interest rate were entered. So we can go ahead and hit enter 0 for those to save the record. One of the other new fields is enterprise level leverage, which applies to 2019 and 2020 recipients. On the project record, you will enter projected enterprise level leverage. On the annual report, you will enter the actual enterprise level leverage. So for 2019 and 2020 recipients, this is not tied to an explicit performance benchmark or goal, but rather this is just another data point where the CDFI fund is collecting information on enterprise level leverage for informational purposes only. As a reminder, enterprise level leverage is capital that is earned or raised by your organization that is not tied to a specific project at the time it is earned or raised. And of course, this source of capital does not actually count as leverage unless it is used to pay for eligible project costs. While we're on a homeownership record, we can go ahead and point out the new race and ethnicity fields. So here on the edit page, you'll observe two new fields, owner Hispanic, you can indicate yes, no, not available, and the homeowner race. You'll find a list of race options. These are two optional fields, but the CDFI fund is now optionally collecting information on race and ethnicity. For all record types, including homeownership project record, which we're on here, you will find a new project impact description field at the bottom of the page. Here you can optionally provide a description of the project or the greater impact it's having in the community or neighborhood. Returning to a rental project, one more new field to point out, and that is out-of-service units. So when creating an annual report for a rental project, we'll go ahead and create a new rental or an annual report for this rental project. At the bottom of the page, you will observe a new out-of-service units field in the rental units occupied at fiscal year end by family income section. In this out-of-service units field, the CDFI fund is interested in collecting information on the number of units that have been out of service for the recipient's most recent fiscal year. So in the event a unit is undergoing significant repairs or is otherwise been out of service, not available for lease or rent by an income qualifying family, you would report that unit here in the out of service units field. Returning to the reporting guide, I'd like to go through a bit of the field combinations and edits. So in order to simplify, help reduce the reporting burden, a number of CMF fields have been combined. So you may recall when reporting public and private sources of capital, there were third-party and related. So here we can see third-party private dollars and related private dollars. For both projected and actual cost, those fields have been combined into just the private dollars and public dollars. So if we return to a project record here, we can see here on a rental project, instead of having related private and third-party private, and same thing for public, related and third-party, we now just have two categories. There's projected private dollars and projected public dollars. Same thing for the actual cost. There's actual private dollars and actual public dollars, which have rolled up from the annual report. The CDFI fund generated these new fields, populated these new fields with data previously reported by the recipients. However, recipients are encouraged to validate this data as part of their next CMF performance report. As mentioned with rental projects, the CDFI fund is no longer collecting information on costs associated with extremely low-income families. As we can see here in this rental project example, you will still find fields for the number of completed extremely low-income units and the number of units occupied by extremely low-income families. However, costs are no longer being reported on those units, which is why here in the eligible project cost by income category section, you will not see an extremely low-income category section. So any costs that are associated with these extremely low-income units, if any exist, you would go ahead and report those in the very low-income families field. Once again, the CDFI fund merged any of those costs associated with extremely low-income families previously reported by the CMF recipients into this new field. So all recipients are encouraged to validate the cost that have been reported or that have been populated in the very low-income families dollar field to ensure the data edits are correct. This would apply to both the very low-income dollars projected and also the actual dollars associated with very low-income family rental units. One final change of merged data points and edits is related to program income. When reporting earnings of program income, there used to be three options: PI earned, equity and loan repayments, recoveries, and interest income. The recoveries have been merged in with the equity and loan repayments. So if there were any recoveries that were previously reported by a CMF recipient, those have now been added into or merged with the PI earnings of equity and loan repayments. Those two data points merged into one new field of equity, loan repayments, and recoveries. CMF recipients are encouraged to review this data point to ensure the data changes are correct. If you have any questions about these changes, The service request feature in AMIS is the preferred method of communication. If you click on the service request tab, or if you do not see the service request tab, hit the down arrow and you will find it in the list. From the service request tab, click create new service request. For the program, select Capital Magnet Fund. Indicate the specific award. If your question is award specific, you can leave the status and service request origin field as they are. From the priority dropdown, set the priority as low, medium, or high. Indicate a subject and provide a detailed description and hit submit. Someone from the CDFI fund will get back to you as soon as possible. Once again, all CMF recipients are encouraged to review the compliance reporting manual that is available on the CDFI Fund's website. On the CMF page under Step 5 for compliance reporting, the guide will provide a detailed summary of those changes along with step-by-step changes for reporting on the individual project types. As mentioned, the service request is the preferred method of communication and the best way to reach out to the CDFI Fund. However, the CDFI Fund can also be reached at one of the phone numbers or email addresses listed at the bottom of your screen. We thank you for attending this training, reviewing the summary of changes for the 2021 CMF Compliance Report enhancements. Thank you.